everyone, welcome to Models and Agents, episode 113 on July 16th, 2026. Let's see what shipped. Another day, another round of AI developments. Let's break it down. OpenAI's GPT-5.6 Sol cuts prompt injection failures by 6 times through targeted red teaming, giving builders a noticeably safer base for agent loops. OpenAI reports that training against GPT-Red attacks produced a model 6 times more robust than its predecessor from 4 months ago. The model was evaluated on previously unseen attacks generated by GPT-Red and recorded 6 times fewer failures than the prior best production model. This directly improves the reliability of any agent that accepts untrusted input or tool output. Builders working on long-running agents can now start from a checkpoint that already incorporates this safety signal instead of adding post-hoc filters. Watch for follow-up releases that extend the same training loop to other frontier models. This continues the frontier model safety arc tracked since last episode, where closed labs have been iterating red teaming techniques to close the gap between capability and alignment. Anthropic released new simulation results showing 4 additional misalignment patterns in autonomous agents. Thinky open-sourced a 975 billion parameter multimodal model under Apache 2.0. SpaceX AI released the full Rust agent harness behind its coding CLI. Thinky released its first full LLM under OpenWeights, a 975 billion parameter multimodal model, plus a smaller 276 billion parameter variant. Both carry Apache 2.0 licensing. The release immediately becomes the strongest openly available American model in its class. Builders can now run a competitive multimodal model without closed API dependency or restrictive commercial terms. The OpenWeight release narrows the documented performance gap between closed frontier families and community-accessible checkpoints. A 1 trillion parameter model trained with 0 reinforcement learning reached competitive results on 7 math benchmarks after a 2-phase training run. The pipeline added clipped importance sampling and mixed precision controls to keep training stable at this scale. Emergent behaviors observed include self-verification and parallel reasoning traces. Teams scaling reinforcement learning beyond 100 billion parameters should examine the reported training-inference ratio correction. The work directly tests the open question of whether reasoning gains from test time compute continue to scale linearly once models exceed several hundred billion parameters. Phi-4 was the strongest small model for Bangla health misinformation claim extraction in the reported experiments. The authors paired it with a responsible natural language processing framework that adds cultural sensitivity and harm potential checks. The work targets low resource settings where large models remain impractical. Anyone building detection pipelines for non-English health content can start with the Phi-4 baseline and the released framework. The Patter SDK guide walks through a complete voice agent workflow including dynamic caller variables, tool registration for bookings, output guardrails, and a latency cost dashboard. The same logic maps to a Twilio plus OpenAI real-time deployment. Developers can follow the scripted call flows and deterministic eval harness to validate before going live. The post supplies the exact guardrail and eval patterns needed for production phone agents. This update advances the agent tool use program by demonstrating concrete guardrail patterns that address the reliability questions raised in recent episodes. SpaceX AI released the full Apache 2.0 Rust codebase covering the agent loop, tool dispatch, text user interface, and extension system used by its coding CLI. Grok 4.5 itself remains closed and external contributions are not accepted. The release gives builders a ready-to-fork Rust agent skeleton for CLI-style coding tools. Clone the repo if you need a high-performance, low-level agent harness instead of Python frameworks. The open-sourced harness provides a concrete reference implementation for the agent loop standardization questions that have been tracked since the last episode. Simon Willison extracted the Rust Mermaid rendering code and compiled it to WebAssembly for direct browser use. The resulting tool runs entirely client-side. Anyone embedding diagrams in web apps can drop the WebAssembly module in place of server-side rendering. The Noact Shihu Claw framework adds a pluggable GUI subagent with experience attributable memory and a self-evolving skill library on top of OpenClaw. It reports 64.1% on the Long Horizon Mobile World benchmark using open-source Kimi 2.6 models. Cross-platform support covers Android, iOS, HarmonyOS, and Windows. The memory and skill components transfer across base models with an 8.5% lift. PCC-SQL applies a per-token logits mask derived from column-use policies so that single query violations are deterministically eliminated during decoding. It achieves 0% leakage and up to 88.7% coverage on Spider/CU while staying within plus 10% tokens of direct prompting. The approach works across 3 open-source models and 3 benchmarks. Teams that need deterministic policy enforcement in text-to-SQL pipelines can adopt the grammar-aligned masking technique immediately. Evidence selection is cast as a QUBO problem that balances relevance, requirement coverage, redundancy, and compactness. The selector matches large language model-based set selectors on Hotpot QA, exact match, and token F1 while remaining solver compatible. This separates combinatorial selection from semantic generation, letting teams reserve large language models for answer synthesis. PalmClaw runs the full agent loop, memory, skills, and tools directly on device and exposes mobile capabilities as explicit device tools. It records an 11.5% relative task success gain and 94.9% reduction in completion time versus the strongest baseline. The design keeps every action inside clear execution boundaries. Mobile developers looking for a native alternative to GUI automation agents can start from the open source release. Okay, let's pop the hood on cost-aware speculative decoding for mixture of experts models. Everyone talks about speculative decoding as a simple draft and verify speedup. In practice, the technique collides with the non-uniform memory cost of mixture of experts inference. When high-probability draft tokens route to disjoint experts, the verification step triggers scattered expert loads that erase most of the latency win. EcoSpec therefore adds a lightweight expert predictor and a dynamic buffer that prefers draft paths whose experts are already resident in the current verification set. The added predictor costs a few milliseconds, yet reclaims up to 1.62 times end-to-end speedup on 671 billion scale mixture of experts models by cutting expert weight traffic. The key engineering decision is to keep the target model's verification rule unchanged so the method works as a drop-in draft selector. Use it when your mixture of experts workload is memory bandwidth bound and you already have a fast expert predictor. Skip it if expert activation is already dense or your draft model is tiny enough that scattering is rare. Clone the SpaceX AI Grok build repo and run its text user interface on a local coding task to see how the Rust agent loop compares with Python frameworks. Load Thinky's Inkling small weights for any multimodal retrieval workload you currently route to a closed API. Add the client-side Grok Mermaid WebAssembly module to a dashboard that renders diagrams without server round trips. Run the Patter SDK restaurant booking example end-to-end and compare its guardrail plus eval harness against your current voice agent stack. Expect further OpenAI releases that apply the GPT-Red training loop to additional model families. Watch for more open-weight multimodal releases now that Thinky has set a new Apache 2.0 baseline. Anthropic's agent-misalignment simulations will likely spawn follow-up benchmarks from other labs. Tomorrow, keep an eye on additional details from the Thinky Inkling release and any early community benchmarks on the 975 billion parameter checkpoint. That's models and agents for today. If you found this useful, share it with someone who's trying to keep up with all these changes and subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's update. The AI world moves fast. We'll help you keep up. See you tomorrow. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at Nara Network. Links in the show notes. And before you go, this show is part of the Nara Network, a family of daily podcasts on tech, science, and markets, each one a short, sharp briefing you can finish on the commute. If today earned its place in your feed, here's your next listen. Fascinating Frontiers, the most fascinating news from space and science. Find every show free at naranetwork.com. Live dashboards, TSLA, SpaceX launches, the investing scoreboard are all at naranetwork.com/data. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.